So we're ready to go live. I'm going to introduce our session since we seem to be live on Facebook. For those of you who haven't done this before, we do record this event, these webinars, and I'm so grateful to be here with you today. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. My name is Liz England. I'm the founder of the Career Path Development Professional Learning Network. And we're here today with our beloved colleague and friend and leader in the TESOL Career Path Development Professional Learning Network, Mr. Damon Anderson, a wonderful leader, colleague, friend for many years, and now Foreign Service Officer retired. We're just thrilled to have his presentation today on the topic of looking at a deeper view of necessary 21st century skills using a tool he calls or is called Doodly. And I'm so thrilled to be here to talk about this topic in the context of career path development. So many of us have been developing over the last 2 or 3 years. I just finished a survey from the TESOL International Association. I encourage all who are members to complete that survey. TESOL, like us in CPD, are looking at new ways of providing services to our members. TESOL asks for your input on that survey. And today you're going to see a great example of one TESOL member's efforts, one CPD leader's efforts to try out something new. And he's going to teach us about it too. This is a great day for us to learn together. Thank you all for coming. I'll turn it over now to our moderator. Linda Chu is another TESOL CPD leader who has been with us for a long time and it does a wonderful job at organizing these webinars. We're so happy to welcome Linda early in the morning for her in Arizona. Very quickly, I'll just mention we have other CPD leaders here today. From Scotland, Lynn Clark is with us on holiday with her family in Scotland. And Wei Yu Chang is in Singapore. She's helping us with technology today. And of course, Damon is here too. And I'm missing Gulchera is with us too. She's helping us from Tajikistan, a newcomer to our leadership team. So grateful to have you all here. Linda, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liz. So as Liz said, we are thrilled to have our dear colleague, CPD leader, former Relo, colleague extraordinaire, Damon Anderson. And Damon is here to tell us a little bit about Doodly. And he has prepared a wonderful presentation for you today. And while you're watching, please think of questions and put your questions in the chat for Damon. And when there is a break or when we get to the end, Damon would be happy, I'm sure, to answer your questions. So enjoy this lovely presentation. Thank you so much, Damon. I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Well, thank you both, Liz and Linda. And hello, everybody. It's great to see you. I've been in this profession for almost 50 years. I know I look like I'm 3 times that old, but anyway, it's what's interesting is that I'm still learning. And I enjoy going to TESOL because I learned so much from the presentations that I attend, and also from the people that I network with and communicate with during the conference. And so I'm, in terms of career path development, I find that I'm forever developing. I'm always learning and always changing. And I started out back in the days when audiolingual was the thing that everybody was doing. And many of you don't even know what that was. Some of you remember, or some of you may have read about it. But now we're so far advanced from that. And I like to think that I keep changing and that I've grown along the way. And it's because of organizations like Career Path Development and the people that we meet that I feel not only myself, but all of us are able to keep up with the changes and continually to grow and not only help our students, but help to inspire each other as we go along. So what I'd like to do today is, first I'm going to share my screen, if I may. Oops, let me go back here. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Good. Okay, so what I'd like to share with you today are my notes from a couple of things that I observed at TESOL 2022. So this is not an in-depth study. It's not a researched thing or whatever. It's just my reflections and my understanding of things that I gathered from TESOL 2022, from a couple of presentations that inspired me in different ways. And a couple of those, well, most of those were focused on the 21st century skills, which are really important for us and for our students, for our success in the 21st century and beyond. And so I'd like to share those with you, but I want to do it in two different ways. One way is using this, this dynamic tool called Doodly, which helps me to create MP4 videos. It's a tool, and I can save them as an MP4. And in the Doodly, they draw characters and draws a text. The voice can be your original voice, or it can be an AI generated voice. If you put in the text, then an AI will read that text. The Doodly that I'm going to present to you today, you hear my voice, not the AI voice, to present all of the information. And then what I'd like to do after presenting the Doodly, it's only about 7 minutes long, but I think there's a packed box of information there for us to take out in terms of 21st century skills, but also looking at it from the Doodly point of view. After watching the Doodly, let's discuss not only the Doodly, but some of the things that you saw in there. And then we'll stop that discussion. And then I'm going to do the same presentation using a typical PowerPoint. And let's compare and contrast the difference between the Doodly presentation and a PowerPoint presentation. And think about these and think about the tools and how and where we can use them. So with your permission, I'd like to start out with the Doodly first. So our Doodly presentation is here. Hello, welcome to a TESOL CPD PLN webinar discussion in which I will briefly present a theme and then open up the session for questions and discussion. Please be an active participant, as your views will be a crucial addition to our understanding of the issues raised. I would like to address you today about a very important topic, 21st century skills we all need to be successful in today's world. We have all been talking about these skills for the last few years, and they were brought up and discussed in more depth by several presenters at TESOL 2022. Most of us have only considered one level of these skills, the learning skills of critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. There are actually two other levels of skills that also need to be addressed: literacy skills and life skills. We touch on the literacy skills when we address communication. The key literacy skills are information, media, and technology, or with more of a focus broadly on digital literacy. These are the navigation skills to which we apply our learning skills. We use these skills when we seek out, search for, and collect data and information, and evaluate and organize it. The third level of 21st century skills necessary for success are the life skills: adaptability, leadership, social skills, initiative, and productivity. According to Daniel Sherry in his TESOL 2022 presentation, these soft skills, especially adaptability, are the crucial skills that industry is focusing on when looking at employees or candidates' talent. He quotes Dr. Ernest Wilson III, who is founder of the Center for Third Space Thinking, who defines the skill as the willingness to adjust one's thinking and approach in response to new, unexpected, or changing conditions and information. Indeed, Alvin Toffler in the 1970s and 80s predicted that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. The last 3 years have taught us that what Toffler and Wilson stated is very true. As teachers, we need to make some dramatic mind shifts and begin to learn to apply and model all the 21st century skills that will aid us and aid our students in successfully navigating their uncertain future. TESOL 2022's opening plenary also discussed these concepts. Hector Ramirez said that teachers still do the steps of model, share, guide, and apply. However, he points out there is one more crucial step, and that is transfer. Stopping at the apply step usually incites mostly drilling and memorization. According to Mr. Ramirez, to get beyond drilling and memorization, we need to include the transfer step so students learn how to use what they have learned in the real world and go beyond our classrooms and continue learning without us. Sounds like Toffler and Wilson. Ramirez challenges the teachers to not only look at the technical changes in materials, tools, structures, protocols, timeliness, practices, and policies, but to also, at the same time, work on the adaptive changes in habit, rituals, assumptions, attachments, beliefs, and feelings. He states that without focusing on the adaptive changes, many teachers pick up new material or try a new curriculum using the old habits, assumptions, etc., and don't see much difference or improvement. We need to work on our adaptability skill and be able to change our mindset accordingly when confronted with the technical changes, especially the addition of technology in the classroom. Technology is a key, not the only key, to today's education process. Using technology in the education process is not just a trend. It is not an experiment. It is not just playing. It is a way of connecting the classroom to the world. Using technology in the education process is using 21st century communication tools to add new dimensions to the process and is now an industry standard. The millennials and Z generation are very digitally literate. They prefer to communicate using technology, such as social media, mobile phones, etc. Communicating effectively with students is key to the education process. So we need to communicate with them using their preferred means of communication, technology. Engaging more effectively with students will allow us to better involve them in the learning process of the 21st century skills necessary for their success, learning skills, literacy skills, and life skills. Benjamin Franklin expressed his views on education when he quoted Confucius, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn." We want our students to learn and not just remember. Technology helps us to dramatically involve students in the education process. I hope you enjoyed my brief talk. Now it is time to relax, reflect on, and discuss the issues raised. Please share your thoughts. If you enjoyed this, come to our next CPD PLN webinar and learn more and gain more to reflect on in your professional development, regardless of your stage in your career or semi-retirement. Thank you. Okay, so what did you think? What did you think? If you liked it, put a thumbs up. Yay. So far, great. Okay, I'd like to open this up for any comments right now that anybody would like to make about the Doodly, the concept of the Doodly, using the Doodly. And if you want to talk about the content within the Doodly, we can talk about that for a while too, before I get into the PowerPoint presentation of exactly the same material.
Damon,
Yeah.
I have a question about learning Doodly and what kind of a learning curve there might be in figuring out how to put this together. Does it take, a lot of skills that we might not necessarily have, or does it build on some skills that we might have already?
I think very good question. For me, the learning curve wasn't that steep for using the Doodly. Because I'm able to put PowerPoints together, putting a Doodly together was very similar in some ways. I had a choice of characters. You saw the little guy standing there. I can create different people. I just got a new addition to the Doodly where I can actually almost create my own people, change their clothes, change whatever, different things. But so there's a lot of creativity in that. And then a creativity in how the writing occurs on the screen. And you saw a couple of different ways. So I changed it so it didn't all look the same, doing that. So you have selections and things that you can do. And the most challenging part for me, though, was once I had the storyboard out, which is all the pictures and the animations and everything, then I had my script. I wrote out my script because I had to be very precise about it. And then I had to I read my script, and then I had to, the hardest part was timing the script and the slide movement and everything together. And so that took a certain amount of patience, but it wasn't difficult. It wasn't difficult. It was just, kind of like trial and error. Oh no, I got to lengthen this. No, I got to lengthen this a little more. Oh, too much. Go back. And whatever. But I don't know. What do you think? Did it flow well enough for you?
Yeah, I thought it was beautiful. It was really easy to follow. So that's why I had the question of, I wondered, you made it look pretty seamless. But I suppose you've had some practice putting these together.
No, actually, this is only about my fourth or fifth one
Oh,
that I've done. And so, yeah. So, like I said, I don't think it's that steep of a learning curve in doing it.
okay, great.
It really isn't.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? I think Alan Paris, who somebody had a question.
Yes, Damon Annie Paris wrote in a chat that this is technical question. How did you draw right so quickly? I mean, when he was speaking and writing immediately.
Yeah, I didn't do that. The Doodly does that for you. And you can actually speed it up or slow it down. And you can actually either have the person actually just appear on the screen, or you can have the Doodly draw the person for you and color it in. So you have a choice. So the only thing I did was talk. Doodly did everything else, which was really nice. And the fact that I could add my own voice means I could do this in different languages. So not all AIs can speak other languages, but if I wanted to do this in, I think Firuz here, Farsi is your language. I could do it in Farsi. Well, I can't, but whatever. So I don't know. Does that answer your question? I mean, it was a great question.
Yeah, I think it was the last one.
Okay, Anne. Alan Paris says, hi, Anne, great to see you. She works to align workplace English training with the country. So skills employers are looking for are a major focus of such teacher training of workplace English learners. And that's true. And that was something that several people addressed in the TESOL 2022 convention, was that English teachers teach more than English,
Mhm.
and I agree with them. And I have to say, over the last several years, few years, what I've been telling English teachers is, don't call yourself English teachers anymore. I tell everybody, call yourself communication specialists, in which you teach English communication or communication in English. Because the profession now, we're focusing on communication. And when we're focusing on communication, we can easily bring in these other workplace skills, life skills, and literacy skills that are important. So, Anne, I'm glad you're doing that. I'd love for you to do a webinar here on what you're doing. I think that would be wonderful for all of our folks.
Yeah, I agree. We had Mohammed from Morocco a few weeks ago. Some of you may have attended. He talked about soft skills, not, and it's very much in line, Damon, with your comments just now. The teacher's skills and the learner's skills must be kind of aligned. And so often those of us who are older are not doing that, because we teach the way we were taught without all the technology. These days, as I think your presentation addresses, and I think Anne's question, I'd like to hear more on this. We need to align our own career paths spaces. That is, where are we in our career paths? If we're novice teachers, we're going to approach this issue differently from being a veteran teacher, for example, or a semi-retired teacher. So I'd love to hear, Damon, ideas you have, and I know you have them, because the whole idea is to align the students' needs with the teaching tools that we use. And I know nowadays with all the technology that students expect and learn faster with the multimedia, with the visual, just as you just elaborated on Doodly. If they're learning occupational skills from Anne, they do it more with visual than they did in the past, just as an example. If Pramila in Jaffna has beginners, right? Beginners in a grammar class, right? They're going to be learning English in a different way and for different purposes from, and students in the US, for example. I don't know. I mean, these are just things to think about. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, Damon, on how these things kind of go together.
Yeah, really good comments, Liz. One thing is that now, in the past, we focused on materials, and then we focused on methodology, and we've gone so far beyond that. Now our focus is actually on the learner and learning, and we're learning to, as teachers, we're learning to listen to the learners and to try to help them more. I have to think about one example I'd like to give is when I was in Bangkok, walking from my apartment to my office every day. I would pass this one mother and young son, and she always liked to try to talk to me in English, and encourage her son to learn some English. They were Thai, and so we would talk, and I would say good morning, and they would say good morning and ask the questions. And a couple of days, the young boy wasn't there. He hadn't been feeling well. And so that the next time I saw them, I said, hello, good morning, everything. And so I asked him, I said, how are you today? And he looked at me and he goes, I'm good up. So he didn't know how to say better. He didn't know what better was, but he was good up, which was better. And I guessed that. And so I said better. And so I started thinking about how learners can try to use the language they have to say what they don't yet know how to say, and start focusing on things like that. And I think technology helps us to do a lot to help the learner, to give them confidence, to help them to try to do things. And so With that, let me stop here and go back to share screen and now do this same thing through through PowerPoint and see if we get a difference. Okay. I hope I can do this right. Let's see. Share. Oops, that's the whiteboard. Share screen.
Yep.
Okay. So, oops. So 21st century skills. There are actually 3 levels, and there's the learning skills, the literacy skills, and the life skills. And most teachers don't pay attention to the last 2, but focus mostly on the learning skills. And a lot of talk over the last several years has been talking about critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and creativity, which we consider to be the learning skills. And we do a lot of work with this, especially on critical thinking. And now looking very closely at collaboration and getting people to collaborate in the classroom, to work together on projects and things, and focusing more now on communication and bringing in creativity, allowing students to create some of the topics, create some of the work that we use in the classroom. So there's a lot focusing on learners on the learner skill right now, which is quite good. But we also need to focus on these other skills and focus a little more on the literacy skills. And I consider the literacy skills to be more or less our navigation tools, where the learning skills, we're working on communication and collaboration. Here we're working on our navigation skills, how to look for and find information, looking at media, using the media, and also using technology to help us with our navigation and also with our communication. Communication goes through all of this, not just in the learning, but also in navigation as well. And so the literacy skills help us to seek out, search for, collect data and info, evaluate it, and organize it. Then we also have the life skills. The life skills, which Liz had mentioned earlier, some people are calling soft skills. These life skills are really very important. And the life skills include things like adaptability, leadership, social skills, initiative, productivity. And all of these are the things that we all bring into form our community. And so we want our classes, our students and all, not only to look at the classroom community, but also to look at the community outside of the classroom and to be able to take all of this out there. So the life skills are really important. And today they're becoming even more and more of a focus. And it is these life skills that seem to be the new industry focus when they're looking at talent. They're looking at the life skills and especially your adaptability. And if you look at online, many of the types of questions that interviewers are asking and the types of questions that are in applications today, they are focusing on these life skills, the types of questions and things they ask. Even TESOL in its applications now is beginning to focus on these life skills as well. And so Daniel Sherry shared what Dr. Ernest Wilson concept of adaptability is, and he's from the Third Space Thinking Center. And I love this whole concept of third space thinking. Just the title, just, when the minute Daniel said that at TESOL, it just opened up something in my mind, third space thinking. And so I've gone online and checked it out. I encourage you to check it out. But adaptability is the willingness to adjust one's thinking and approach in response to new, unexpected, or changing conditions and information. The willingness, that's a key word. It's the willingness to adjust. I heard a word this week that is becoming I think my word of the month. And my word of the month is disengage. Disengage. We have to learn how to disengage from our habit, from something we're used to, from a way of thinking, and to engage into something new. So the willingness to adjust one's thinking and approach is a key element to today. And it is something that industry is looking for. Can you change? Because industry is changing. Communication is changing. Life is changing. How adaptable are you? Do you have the creativity and everything that it takes to be able to do that? So I like that. So, and then Alvin Toffler in the 1970s, for heaven's sakes, here we are in 2022, and I'm quoting Alvin Toffler from the 1970s, but he was right. He was right. He said the illiterate of the 21st century won't be the people who can't read or write, but will be those people who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Again, my word, disengage. Okay, so how good are you at learning? How good are you at unlearning? Challenge yourself. And how good are you at relearning with a new focus, a new perspective, a new idea? So these are the skills of the 21st century that we need. So as teachers, we need to be able to make dramatic mind shifts. And we need to teach our students and help our students to also make dramatic mind shifts. We need to begin to learn, apply, and model the 21st century skills. Don't talk about them and still remain 20th, 19th, and 20th century. We have to do more than talk about them. We have to apply them and model them. And by doing this, we will help ourselves and our students to successfully navigate the uncertain future. Okay, it is uncertain, and things are changing at a rapid pace. So Hector Ramirez, in his opening plenary at TESOL 2022, said that today teachers are modeling, sharing, guiding, and applying the information that they're teaching. But he said there's a crucial step that's missing. Because what happens is people stop after model, share, guide, and apply. They stop. And he says that stopping here after the apply incites just drilling and memorization. And that what needs to happen is one more step after apply. And that step is transfer. And the transfer of transferring what you're learning to the real world, transferring it into your own space, into your own ideo thinking of how you use the language, how you communicate, is helping. We need to help students go beyond the classroom and help them to continue learning beyond us, beyond being with us. So he says transfer is the key to that. Hector also challenged us and said teachers need to go beyond just technical changes and apply adaptive changes. And he's right. Technical changes, we all meet changes in materials, changes with tools, changes with structures, changes in protocols, changes in timeliness, practices, and policies. And we deal with these changes. But so many times, teachers are handed new materials, new ideas, new protocols, or whatever, And they grab onto it for a short time and then find themselves going back to the old materials, the old way, comfortable way of doing things. And Hector says, that's because we haven't embraced the adaptive changes. The adaptive changes are creating new habits, creating new rituals, accepting new assumptions, attachments, beliefs, and feelings that if you don't do the adaptive changes, technical changes aren't going to last very long, or they're going to be misused or not used at all. And so we need to work on our adaptability skill to be able to change ourselves and help our students also to work on adaptive changes as well. So one of the adaptive changes is the use of technology in the education system. And a lot of people who think that they're Luddites, they're really not. I don't think there is such a thing as a real Luddite out there. It's just people who lack experience and lack the adaptive change, the adaptability to be able to unlearn and relearn something new. So technology is key in today's education process. Technology adds new dimensions to the process, and it addresses a lot of issues. It also helps to bring the real world into the classroom in a very dynamic way that we were never able to do in the past. So right now, the younger generations, the millennials and the Z generations, they're digitally literate. They prefer to communicate using technology, such as social media, mobile phones, etc. I know a lot of people that they live on WhatsApp, or they live on text messages, short messages. They use emoticons and they use videos. A lot of young people today are listening to blogs. They're listening, they have their earphones in. Are they just listening to music? No, many of them are also listening to blogs about life skills, about different products and different abilities and things. And so using blogs, using social media, using the mobile apps and things are the way that they communicate and the way that we can work with them to try to communicate with them. So communicating effectively with students is key to the education process. It's all about how do we communicate with the students. And my suggestion is, after TESOL 2022 and listening to people and through my own observances and things, is we need to communicate with our students using their preferred means of communication. And in many ways, that is technology. And that is what I try to do with Doodly. Doodly, using memes and using motion and using video, and something that they can just pick up, watch, put down, watch again as many times as they want, picking out what is interesting to them, something that is moving, that keeps their imagination and keeps their mind focused. So communicating effectively with students is key to the education process, and doing that using their preferred means of communication, not my preferred means of communication, just handwriting and whatever, long sentences. Use theirs, use emoticons, use different things to help communicate with the students. And that's what technology allows us to do, is to communicate with students better in the education process. So engaging more effectively will allow us to better involve the students in the learning process. So we need to focus on all three levels of the 21st century skills: the learning skills, literacy skills, and life skills. Benjamin Franklin, a little before my time, not much before my time, but via Confucius said, "Tell me and I forget. how many teachers still focus on the telling? Tell, 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 tell. They're the knowledge givers. Tell, tell, tell. Teach me, and I remember. A lot of teachers do teach. But teaching sometimes is mimicry, memorization, is rote, is drilling, is a lot of things. So we need to get beyond just the teaching to get into what Hector Ramirez says is the transfer side of things. To get to the transfer is you involve the students. Involve me and I learn. Involve me and I learn. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn. So with that, now it's time to relax, reflect on what was said, and let's discuss the issues. So come to our next CPD PLN webinar. Thank you. So there you are. You've got it both via Doodly and also via PowerPoint. So what do you think? Comments?
So for me, Damon, I was thinking actually that in a classroom, you could use both of these methods, right? The first time you show, because we need to see things or remember things like 7 times, right? Before we actually cement it in our brain. And so I love the idea of the Doodly. It was only 7 minutes and it gives you this very dynamic intro to what it is you're going to really be talking about. And then when you did the PowerPoint, it was like, oh yeah, I see that. And you're already making connections to, you know, what you had shown us before. So I'm thinking that maybe you could even use it that way as like an intro and then go into perhaps a PowerPoint or some other way of teaching. And then, as you said, the students can use that even later as a review or you know, continue kind of cementing what they learned. But I really liked it. I liked everything. It was great.
Great.
Lynn has her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
I actually took my hand down because Linda actually just said what I was going to say, that I found it interesting that for me, the way my mind was working as you were doing the presentation, the PowerPoint, I felt like I had an anchor already in the water because I'd watched the Doodly with you. And so when you said, you mentioned the speakers that you mentioned what Hector Ramirez said. I was like, oh yes, that I already had that connection made. And so I was able to think deeper the second time on what you were saying.
Great. Oh, that's wonderful. I feel a success there. Thank you.
And I'm going to say something quick because it follows so perfectly with Lynn and Linda. In CPD, really, we all sort of think alike a little bit. The idea, though, that I want to present has to do with my trip to Uzbekistan last fall. I was there for 3 months. And one of the things that we were doing in that program was promoting learner autonomy. How do we get the students to sort of take more control over their own learning? Lynn made a comment about it in the chat. You might want to scroll back up and look at it. But what this Doodly does is it hands the student a tool. You've made this video. We don't, you know, I have a PhD in second language acquisition. We don't know how people learn English. We know that they learn it and we know that everyone's different, but we don't know exactly how it happens. So we hand them this Doodly and they can look at it as many times as they want to. They can stop it and repeat and record, you know, look at it and go back and repeat it over and over if you're that kind of learner. Or they listen to the whole thing, or their friend and they sit together and listen to it because they're extroverts. They like to study it together. They have this tool that they can own it and use it in ways that, you know, if it's just a lecture, if it's just one shot, we know, as Linda said 7 times. So I love this tool because it allows students to control and take ownership of the ways in which they learn. Thanks.
Great. Aisha, I see your comment that learning skills can be easily integrated with the life skills. And that's so true. That's so true. And we need to focus on all 3 levels of these skills. Let's see, are there any other questions? Any other questions?
Sergio just came. So hi, Sergio.
Sergio, you can watch the watch the Doodly again.
So, yeah. So Johnny just said PowerPoint is more elaborate than the Doodly presentation. Was that intentional?
No, actually, the intent was to present the same information. But yes, but when I do a PowerPoint, I try to make it visually interesting and not just totally flat, words and everything. So so I guess it was more elaborate in that sense. Is that what you meant, Sitora? Or Johnny? Johnny, is that what you meant? I guess. Hello, Johnny. Anyway.
Oh, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't understand what you're sorry. I think it is more elaborate and time and space comparatively Doodle. It is more lengthy and more detailed, I think so.
Yeah, well, the Doodly, I needed to keep it shorter and crisper. And that's the one thing between the Doodly and the PowerPoint is that, you don't want the MP4 to go on forever and ever and ever. I mean, a huge long video is difficult to work with. And so I had to write out a script, whereas with the PowerPoint, there was no script written out. I could have read it, but I didn't. And so, yeah, there was that difference there. And that the fact that I was able to add more to the PowerPoint could have meant that it was a little bit more robust than the Doodly in that sense. So. Any other questions or comments? What you thought about it? Anne, can you insert a Doodly section into it? I did. My Doodly was inserted in my PowerPoint. It was slide number 3 of my PowerPoint. So I saved it as an MP4, and you can insert an MP4 into the PowerPoint.
It looks like Wei Yu had an interesting comment, Damon. She said slide presentation can be more interactive, better for face-to-face. The Doodly one is great for distribution online for a wider audience.
That's true. That's true. And if I were to take what Lynn and Liz said, and Linda, you said about using the Doodly ahead of time, maybe have the students watch the Doodly for homework and then come into the classroom and then do the PowerPoint in the classroom, so they already have a sense of understanding and direction and ideas to go along with it. So, yeah.
Good. And none of this was possible before COVID. I feel like we've learned exponentially since the beginning of COVID.
Yeah. Can you elicit student videos to put in a Doodly? Um, actually, that's a good
Hmm.
question. I don't know that I can insert another video inside the Doodly. What I would do would be to do the Doodly in the PowerPoint and then insert students' videos within the PowerPoint,
Oh,
at some point, and you can bring the Doodly before, insert a couple of their videos, and then continue with the Doodly after, or whatever. So I think there are different ways of working with it.
mhm.
You can even get students, you can even teach students how to do Doodly. I mean, I'm sure some of them would be much better at it than I am. They would be naturals at it.
Mhm. And you'll be able to find this presentation and other materials related to Doodly on our website, which we've been launching it, but we've had a few problems, but it will be available for you to see this presentation and then other things that we've done on Doodly, thanks to Damon, based on our new knowledge of this tool. I would also say Damon sent us the video of this presentation ahead of time, and there was no problem on we got it on email, and it was very easy to download it, to look at it, to hear it before we got on Zoom. So only to say it's not a kind of difficult tool as far as being able to communicate, using it to communicate on email. Other questions?
Or put it in Dropbox, because you don't want to, actually, I think that's what I did, was shared a link
You
with you
did, yeah.
rather than sending large MP4s through email.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
yeah. Anyway, and I think the other thing about the content is that we all need to learn how to connect better with our students and engage with them. And I think, if you can do a blog, I mean, if you don't want to do the Doodly thing, maybe just do blog posts for your students, that they can listen to the blog before coming to class, and then listen to it again after class to help solidify the notes and things that they took. So there are different ways, but using these things to communicate. Adobe Spark Stories is also great as well. Yeah.
Are you going to give us a presentation on Adobe Spark, Damon?
No, I'm not. That would be Lynn.
Okay.
That would be Lynn.
Lynn, there we go.
No, it's just it's a fun thing to have my students do when they're moving from paragraph to essay, because we put it into Spark and we put in pictures and they just have so much fun with it. And then they're like, oh, this is an essay.
Yeah, but it sure helps
yeah.
with creativity. Yeah, it really does.
Mhm.
I'm writing that down, Lynn.
Okay, I'll put in a proposal, Liz. That's one I will put in a proposal to do.
Yeah. Do any of you have any other types of technology that you use, like Doodly or like Spark Stories, or any of the others that you use for engaging students?
Well, I don't know. Julie Lake taught us in the TESOL. This isn't students, but for teacher leaders, we used Jamboard a couple of times. Damon, you may have been in the room when we did it. And that was something that was new to the teachers, but it created a kind of momentum or a sense of, oh, this might be fun to try. And people would add Jamboard notes. It's like a sticky note that you put on a document when you're brainstorming a problem or a policy, whatever.
Yeah, to go along with Jamboard is also, somebody put it here, Aisha put Padlet or Jotform.
Mhm.
And I have found that, it used to be, for a while, teachers were telling students, leave your mobile phones at the door.
Yeah.
Or put your mobile phones under your desk or somewhere. I want participants now to have their mobile phones with them, because you can use things like Padlet or the Jamboard. I also use Menti, and sometimes have students, I'll do surveys as I go along and have students respond to the surveys very quickly. And you can see the instant flash up on the screen instantly what people are thinking. And it helps people to stay kind of engaged, you know? And when they're engaged that way and using their technology at the same time, it's just kind of their natural way of communicating. So yeah, I haven't used all of these things that people are showing. I haven't used Quizlet, and I haven't used Flipgrid. I'll have to check those out.
Lynn or Linda, do you have the link to the application for webinars? We've got so many topics here. I'd like to pop that into the chat box. I don't have it right here, I'm sorry. But all of you are using tools that I kind of know about, and I would love for us to do a little mini series, if you will, on our webinar program on some of these tools. We don't have to turn it into a great big in-depth, but the way Damon presented this Doodly one is so accessible, and it seems like maybe for our topic of career path development, it might be a good idea to do that. Just a thought. Lynn, you may be interested in getting involved with such a thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, Sergio.
Yeah, Sergio, I also use, when I'm doing Zoom, sometimes I'll put up a QR code and people can go instantly to the Menti site, you know, without having to copy down the number and put in the number or whatever. And using the QR code sometimes takes somebody instantly to where they need to go. So that's a really good way to do it.
Yes, I met a teacher at the Mixteso convention in Puebla, and he was really good at using QR codes. He would move from, he would give like a small explanation and then go to the activity, and then come back to a little bit more explanation and go to the activity. It was really interesting how he did it.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Sergio. That's great.
Maybe you could do that for us, Sergio.
Yeah.
Webinar for us.
That'd be interesting to see, sure.
Yeah, Sergio, thanks. You know, your comments remind me too that people like me, Mr. Boyum is here, Mr. Anderson, some of us are older, and I know too, John Schmidt is here. We feel sometimes intimidated, intimidated. And what Damon has done today is a wonderful example of reducing that fear factor, that intimidation we sometimes feel, because, you know, all this came along. Our students, as Damon intimated before, students are better at it than the teacher. But it's okay that the students, we have to kind of allow ourselves to take this on in new ways. I think as veteran teachers, as semi-retired, it's a different story, how you learn to use this stuff from novice and perhaps more junior teachers. So I welcome such a mini series on technology use. Would love to hear from any one of the folks here. Sergio, thank you so much. And Jani and Aisha and Anne and others have mentioned different ideas, Firuz too, and Gulchera. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and I'm trying to be 21st century literate. I don't want to be an illiterate, so I'm willing to unlearn and relearn.
Be young.
Well, remember when we started using recordings, no, cassettes and stuff. I mean, we also surprised our students when we were young.
True.
And just to add to all of this, it's kind of interesting that as we're talking about all of this, I'm also monitoring the Facebook page where we're live right now, and there are people on that talking about the different technologies that they use. We've got Lin Feng and Kasum Diap are chatting away about different technologies they use in the classroom, all on Facebook at the same time as they're watching this video through a different platform. It's kind of cool.
That's very
That's
cool.
exciting. How many people do we have on the Facebook?
At the moment, I think 5, but there's been quite a lot of
On and off.
comment.
I do that all the time.
Yeah.
You drop in and then you drop out, it's all right. That's great, Damon. Congratulations on such a wonderful presentation. Inspired us.
Great. Well, I was happy to do it. A little worried about how people would take to it,
I know you were, yeah.
but I'm glad that people found it interesting and useful, and it was actually fun to do. I enjoy creating this just for this. That's what I created the Doodly for, was just for this. So yeah.
So
All
Linda, what
right.
have we got
Thanks.
coming up next? I think our
Thanks.
season is almost over.
It is, but first I would like to also say thank you so much to Damon for this lovely presentation. I think we have all learned a lot, and you've done a great job of, as Liz said, kind of simplifying it a little bit for us and showing us and encouraging us that maybe we can do this. So I love it. It was great. And I will be watching your Doodly again also. So what have we got coming up? We are coming to the end of our season, which we usually take a little break in July and August, but we are going to have a tea talk where we will invite our members and our Facebook groups and anyone who would like to join us to come and chat a little bit about their year, about teaching, and perhaps about looking forward to the future and what everyone is looking forward to in terms of the new teaching year, at least the calendar year in the US. I know that they vary from month to month in different places, but we would love to have you all join us and watch our Facebook page. I will be posting information pretty soon about when that might be. And this one will be a little different format because it is just going to be mainly, we would love to hear your ideas and also get your ideas for what you would like to see in future webinars and future offerings from our TESOL Career Path Development Group. So thank you to all of you who joined us. We really appreciate your time and the energy that you put into it, and the discussion questions that came out were fantastic. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.